Get more on this now from GB News presenter Nigel Farage, who is with us on standby. Nigel, good morning. We'll get to your NatWest story in a second, and also your reaction to last night's Tory bloodbath in the by-elections. But first of all, this story in Russia comes pretty much days after Tucker Carlson's incredible interview with Vladimir Putin, where his argument, Tucker, was that Russia just wants peace and, you know, that they're trying to behave like a normal state. What does this do for the optics of Vladimir Putin and Russia?
Well, it's appalling, but it's unsurprising. You know, all the reports about conditions in this penal colony, the way people were being treated, you know, hosed down with water in freezing conditions, etc. So it's not a big surprise. It's dreadful. And you mentioned Tucker Carlson. Now, Tucker's a friend of mine. But I have to say, not even to ask a question about Navalny was, I think, the biggest failing of his interview. And I thought that at the time. Now it looked like very, very poor judgment.
Yeah.
Tucker's, that question had to be asked if there are elections coming up in Russia.
I mean, to Tucker's credit, he did ask about the jailed American journalist, and he asked for his to take him home, in fact. But Putin, interestingly, in the last couple of days, has come out and said, I was surprised at how soft Tucker Carlson was. He didn't ask me any challenging questions, and he pretty much criticised him for being such a soft touch.
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, he did ask about the jailed journalist, to which Putin, of course, had a very strong answer, which is we caught him red-handed, passing over it. So you can believe that, you can disbelieve that. But not to have asked about the state of democracy in Russia, not to have asked about Navalny, was a major failing of the interview. And now in the light of what's happened today, it does look like Tucker failed, frankly.
Yeah. OK, should we speak to you, Nigel, about your latest NatWest scandal? Of course, you were debanked for wrongthink, for holding the incorrect thoughts according to the establishment. You uncovered subject access requests that, well, for example, the troves of their staff called you an awful human being. They criticised the fact that you were an engineer of Brexit. What's the latest now? You're calling for this proposed sale of NatWest shares in the summer to be halted before they properly change their culture. Can you just explain more about what you want from NatWest and Jeremy Hunt?
Well, absolutely. I mean, look, we've had the NatWest profits this morning, and they're very good figures. That's not surprising, given the gap between rates you can borrow and lend with the bank and the fact that rates are higher. They have announced a permanent CEO, Forthwaite, who is an insider and a professional, and that is, of course, a appointment. And I cannot see any evidence that there's been a culture change within the bank of any kind at all. It's as if, let's put the Nigel Farage behind this. Let's give out £350 billion in bonuses to the very people that those subject access requests through didn't just say horrible things about me, but actually threaten violence. You know, they'd like to push me out of a moving car. I mean, It was truly appalling. And the idea that now, in June, NatWest shares will be sold to millions of people, rather like the great privatisation going back to the 1980s, well, given that actually many of those people who might buy shares will have political opinions and social opinions very, very similar to mine, I think it would be wrong, almost fraudulent, to sell shares to people who they hold in contempt. So I want to see two things. Number one, a promise that the culture at the bank has changed and that people will not be unfairly debanked. And believe you me, there are plenty of us. Number two, an admission that the Travers Smith report, the so-called inquiry, was a complete whitewash of acknowledgement that actually was not looking for the right things. And number three, you know, I racked up huge legal bills through the course of all of this, suffered reputational damage as a result of what was said, and they should settle with me as well. If they don't do those things, I will lodge papers in the court and will have this out sometime over the course of the next few months. And that would mean it's almost impossible for this sale to go ahead. Now, Jeremy Hunt wants this sale to go ahead. He wants this to be a big moment of his chancellorship, and it's something he's going to announce, I think, formally in the budget on the 6th of March. So NatWest, settle your debts with me and come clean with the British public. Has your culture changed or hasn't?
And Nigel, in one very, very short sentence, your reaction to those two by-elections overnight. Are Reform a big player now at the general election?
Last night, Reform UK came of age. Up until that point, they'd struggled to mobilise in by-elections. We got a couple of scores there, the average of which is above our national vote share. The party is now on the up. It's gaining presence, it's gaining recognition. I think Reform are very pleased indeed.
Nigel Farage, very much appreciate your attendance with us this morning. Thank you so much for your expertise, as always.